Welcome back to Africa Science Focus, the science and development show from SciDevNet. I'm Ogechi Ekianyao. Across sub-Saharan Africa, farmers are losing huge portions of their harvest before they ever reach the market. Droughts, pests, unpredictable weather season after season, these pressures keep wiping out crops. The numbers are huge. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization says pests destroy up to 40% of global crops. And a research from CABI, an international non-for-profit organization that helps countries tackle agricultural problems, especially plant health and pests, shows invasive species cost African agriculture over $65 billion every year. But for smallholder farmers, it's not just statistics. It's food on the table, it's school fees, and survival. One of the biggest challenges is that we don't have good, reliable data on what's causing these losses and where they're happening. That's why CABI created the Global Burden of Crop Loss, GBCL. It pulls together everything: field observations, climate signals, remote sensing, to give a clearer picture of what's really going on. In East Africa, pilots in Kenya and Ethiopia are testing whether better forecasts and early warnings can actually help farmers act sooner and reduce losses. In this episode, our reporter Michael Kaloki explores how data can help farmers protect their crops and reduce crop losses, and they find out what it will take for evidence to shape national actions across Africa. To understand the scale of the crisis, we began in Kenya, one of East Africa's key grain-producing countries. Our first guest, Anthony Kioko, Chief Executive Officer of the Cereal Growers Association, unpacks the extent of crop loss, what's driving it, and the social and economic pressures it places on farming households.
Crop losses in Kenya, and especially for cereals, would be, in our estimation, anything from 30 to 40%, but in certain situations, it could be as high as 100%. We've seen that in some extreme cases, say of extreme weather conditions or some invasive pests and diseases. So, sometimes you can get up to 100% crop loss. And the question about what really causes this crop loss, we have two main categories. The people in agronomy will tell you there are things we call biotic. There's also abiotic. In other words, there are some of those things that will be about the environment. It could be the weather, drought, floods, and such other extreme conditions or weather shocks. But then there is also what is commonly understood, say pests and diseases, whether it is insects, some insect damage, whether it is about some fungal disease. It could be some migratory birds or invasive, pests such as armyworms or whatever it is. We have seen even birds, Golea birds, for example, in wheat, causing up to 50%, sometimes 80% crop loss on some farmer fields.
Thank you, Anthony. What socio-economic impact, if any, does crop loss have on the farmers and their families?
There could be many, but if you talk about socioeconomic impact that crop loss would have on farmers, I would think, much as there could be a number, the two most significant ones would be loss of livelihoods, and you're talking about potential loss in incomes, because farmers are into the business of farming as a business. They are looking at earning an income out of that farming effort, and therefore, if what they had invested in is lost, then that means, directly speaking, lost money. But then also, farmers will be growing any food, or they'll be growing whatever it is that will be on their farms also to be their source of food. And therefore, crop loss in many cases also translates to significant food and nutrition insecurity for the family. But in the wider scheme of things, if you look at crop loss, there will be clear cases where, due to continued crop loss, then the farmer's capacity to reinvest in agriculture and to continue farming profitably is diminished. And that will be seen in the longer term through, for instance, reduced productivity. And when there is lower productivity, it means there is less food available, not only for the specific family that we are talking about, but also for the wider society.
To understand current resilience strategies, Michael asked Anthony about practical steps cereal growers and farmers are taking to reduce crop loss and respond to emerging threats.
There are many things that we do, sometimes as an organization, because we have a team of field agronomists who are working with farmers on a day-to-day basis. So there are things that we can do directly ourselves with our farmers. But then there are also things that we do through our policy advocacy work. For example, in many conversations that we have with the national government and also the county governments, that would include conversations around what are the specific crop loss threats that farmers are facing and what can government at the two levels do to help such farmers deal with the problem better. For example, in the case of invasive pests, I did mention a few minutes ago about fall armyworms, for example, even African armyworm. Those are not problems that an individual farmer or individual farmers can deal with themselves, regardless of their capacity. It requires government intervention. And our focus in that case then has been about ensuring that the response by government is not only timely but effective. And we've seen in many cases, when we are able to engage with government in good time, then we are able to achieve success, and farmers are able to realize less crop losses. But then also, there are the things that we do through partnerships. As an organization, we have two categories of members. We have the farmer members, as you would expect, but then also we have what we call associate members. Now, these are private companies. These are institutions that serve farmers, but they are not farming themselves. And this will, in many cases, include companies that have solutions on crop loss solutions. For example, companies that are either supplying pesticides, which farmers need to be trained on how to best use them or to deploy them. And so we work in partnership with such companies and institutions or people with certain technical expertise, including coloring in Kenya Agricultural Livestock and Agricultural Research, Agricultural Livestock and Research Organization, CALRO, to get better understanding, deeper understanding, especially around emerging threats on crop loss.
Would I perhaps be correct in saying, Anthony, that also the, if I can call it, traditional data that they have in some cases or many cases is not available because it is not written down?
It's not written down, but also because of how we have evolved as a sector, as a society maybe, it might be the case that whether it was written or not, there is, it might be looked down upon. Maybe what matters is what was learned in a college somewhere, not what your grandfather told you. So there could be a question of both the fact that it's not written down, but then also the very nature of how society has evolved to probably get to be wired to believe that what has not been obtained through formal education is not of much value.
Now, from your perspective, is there adequate policy within the region to assist farmers in dealing with crop loss?
The policy is generally in place. And like in many cases of our policy advocacy work, in crop loss management, the issue may not be that the policy is not there. It's a question of how that policy is consistently and effectively applied to ensure that it addresses the crop loss concerns that farmers may have. And I'll give you an example. There's a whole department and a policy around how to manage migratory pests, for example. But every time we have had such outbreaks, it has taken an enormous amount of time to get the pieces and bits of actors to take action in a way that they can deal with the problem quickly. For example, you might have an outbreak of, say, quelea birds or even fall armyworms. And by the time you're getting the people who are in charge of implementing that policy take action, it might take a while. And by the time they're taking action, there is a significant and possibly avoidable loss in crop yield.
To go deeper into the data itself, we brought together 3 experts from CABI who are leading different parts of the global burden of crop loss work. We spoke with Rasaki Arasah, Project Manager for Digital Development, Dr. Anna Shinishaska, Technical Lead at the GBCL project, and Dr. Negussie Efa, a Senior Scientist with CABI. Together, they helped us unpack the scale of global crop loss, the unique challenges facing African farmers, the science behind GBCL's modeling, and what it takes to turn satellite data, machine learning tools, and field observations into real interventions on the ground.
Rasaki, I'll start off with you. How significant a concern is crop loss in the global context?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Crop loss is a significant concern at all levels. So whether you look at it globally or at the national levels or at the local level, some evidence has suggested that about 40% of crops are lost before they are even harvested. So largely, this is threatening food security, livelihoods, and having some economic stability issues as well. Also, it is estimated that the world population will hit about 10 billion by 2050. By losing less of what we grow, our food systems will be able to feed more people without expanding cultivated areas or increasing the environmental impact of agriculture. So these are just some small snippets of why crop loss is a significant concern in the global context.
Dr. Negussie Efa, on to you now. What unique challenges do we see in Africa?
Africa has got several unique features and the challenge when it comes to crop loss and damages caused by pests. We have got really several unique features, which include favorable tropical climates. Most African countries have got warm and humid tropical climate, which is favorable for pest production and multiplication. We have got diverse agroecologies, which also favors different pests and diseases. More importantly, most African countries have got weak plant health system and the services, including infrastructural facilities, quarantine system, advisory services, and so forth. And also, similarly, the research capacity is also really not at advanced stage. It's also really relatively weak compared to other continents. And also, we lack timely and rigorous information and evidence to inform decisions. And as you know, there are also increasing trade activities, movements within African countries and beyond. That also facilitates spread of pests and diseases, especially introduction of new pests and diseases. So there are also several other socioeconomic factors, such as poverty also contributes on its own. We've got limited resources to carry out necessary preparedness, necessary control actions, management. Most of our farmers are also pursuing unsustainable farming practices. So generally, these different factors and many others really contribute to the crop loss in Africa that is caused by pests. So that's really what makes Africa unique from the rest of the continent. Thanks.
Rasaki Arasah, I'm back to you. What is GBCL and why was it initiated?
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. So GBCL is Global Burden of Crop Loss, and it's an innovative program that brings together people, data, and ideas to work collaboratively on developing a data-driven system to answer pressing questions on the scale, scope, and impact of crop loss. The initiative itself was launched to produce trusted metrics on burden of crop loss across geographies and crops. And largely, it aims to generate rigorous evidence about the impact on society of crop losses across our food systems. So that largely addresses what GBCL is and why it was initiated.
Dr. Anna Shiniszewska, how does GBCL plan to achieve its results?
We are starting our framework with assessing the attainable yield in context, which means what kind of yield would expect in a given location, given local climate, so predominant weather patterns, but also what we know about the irrigation patterns. Is the area equipped in irrigation? But also what is local agronomy? What are the expected nutrient inputs? What kind of agronomy do we expect in a given location? Is it mostly large-scale, intense farming, or is it a predominantly smallholder agriculture? So all in all, we are not looking at this blue sky potential yield, so what kind of yield we would expect if the water was unlimited, if the nutrient inputs were unlimited, if the agronomical practices were optimal. We are trying to assess what we would expect in a given location, given the predominant environmental conditions and farming patterns. So once we define the attainable yield, we then aggregate it on a country level. We multiply it by what we know about the harvested area in a particular location, and that allows us to assess the attainable production for a particular year and for a particular crop. And then we compare it with the FAO statistics of what we know about the historical crop production, the actual crop production, and that gives us an opportunity to assess the crop losses.
Dr. Negussie Efa, back to you. How can the evidence gathered through the project and the subsequent analysis assist governments and other agencies?
It really helps them to make the right decision at the right time, also for the right place and the right group. For instance, by understanding which crops are being lost most, where they are being lost, and what's causing the losses, it will provide insights that can guide targeted interventions and investments. So by having those evidences, concrete evidences and robust evidences, they can target their interventions, prioritize investments. So it generally creates the bridge between actions such as policies, interventions, investments, and data and evidence.
Dr. Shiniszewska, back to you. Now, GBCL selected 2 African countries for a deeper dive work and is carrying out pilots in the region. Could you tell me a bit more?
Yeah, so our case studies focus on downscaling our methodology and doing a deeper dive on the attribution of losses to specific factors. So these factors may include specific weather-related events, so maybe periods of extreme high temperatures or low temperatures that affect crops at different stages of their growth, or specific agricultural pests. These may include weeds, diseases, including bacterial or fungal diseases, but also insects. And our case studies aims is to collate local data, liaise with local partners working in the sphere of plant protection, and develop methodology to make that attribution more specific to those factors. Our case studies focus on crops that are especially important for national food security and the livelihoods in given area, and we selected maize in Ghana and in Kenya, as well as wheat system in Ethiopia, and also rice in the states of Odisha in India. And in each of these contexts, the crop is in questions is central to diets, rural incomes, and national agricultural production strategies. So in case of Kenya, we are liaising closely with local partner ICIPE, who are doing a deeper dive assessment on the crop losses historically caused by 4 key pests in the region. That includes fall armyworm, two maize stem borers, Bussola fusca and Chiloparcellus. And in Ethiopia, we are working closely with CIMMYT, but also with other key partners in the regions on assessing the losses attributed to the key fungal diseases in wheat, which include stem rust, yellow rust, and fusarium.
What challenges have you faced or are you facing, and how are you addressing these challenges?
One major issue is data availability, particularly for pests and diseases. Phytosanitary data are often sparse, inconsistent, and they are sensitive. What we also encounter are many temporal and regional gaps in how they are reported and also in the historical yield records that we are finding. So even when data exists, they can vary in format, in scale, or in quality. And for example, for information like pest distributions or presence, the absences are rarely reported, and which can make interpreting the pest distribution more tricky. So we are carefully building a robust data infrastructure that manages permissions, tracks provenance, and ensures that sensitive data are stored securely. We follow fair data principles, so data are findable, accessible where appropriate, and interoperable and reusable. So when data sets cannot be disclosed, we respect those restrictions while still using the information to generate insights for a given area. And we also fill gaps by combining other information sources, also cross-validating our results and complementing global data sets with literature reviews, local case studies, and in some cases, expert elicitation. So in this way, we can harness the opportunities of working globally while carefully navigating the challenges of data availability, quality, and sensitivity.
And to unpack the science behind crop loss, we spoke with Tilahu Negasa, Assistant Professor of Plant Biotechnology at Addis Ababa University. He studied crop resilience and the impact of pests and the diseases in the region. We asked him about the major drivers of crop loss in Eastern Africa, and from his biotechnology lens, how pests and diseases, including wheat diseases, fuel these losses.
The crop loss is the result of several things. One and the most one is that of pests. Pests are the major causes of crop loss, especially fungal disease, which may cause near to 85% of the crop loss, followed by bacterial disease, and which accounts near to 10%, and that of virus, which and the nematodes that accounts for less than 5% of the crop loss. So pests are generally, we call these pests are the major cause of crop loss in Ethiopia and in Africa as well, and globally as well. Then second one is the increasing climate change, that is drought and heat are these days the major cause of crop loss. So these are the most causes of crop loss in Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Tilahun. Now, as a biotechnologist, could you explain what role pests and diseases play in crop loss? You mentioned pests there as one of the main causes of crop loss. Exactly what role do they play in crop loss? And also, Dr. Tilahun, you've carried out research in diseases on diseases that affect wheat. Is there an example you can give me on the effect of wheat diseases have on crop loss?
Most of the problem, especially on wheat, are rust diseases, there are three types of rusts: yellow rust, stem rust, and the leaf rust. There is also called Septoria triticide blotch. It's a blotch which affects mostly the photosynthetic part. And there is also Fusarium head blight. So these are the major or the critical problems in wheat production. These are fungal diseases. What I mentioned are fungal diseases that this initiate from the soil and starting from the soil and affect the plant starting from germination and maybe visible where at seedling stage and mostly just in wheat it is very visible at heading stage, but the devastation just starts by affecting most of the photosynthetic plant parts of the plants, and these photosynthetic parts are just the one that finally results if the photosynthetic part or most of the leaves are affected, the plant will not synthesize more seeds, and so it results in shriveled seeds, or it may not set the seed at all. So the disease affects the plant, either just the whole plant or parts of the plant, that ultimately result in a yield loss. So one of the example just I worked on is Septoria blotch, and this blotch affects the leaf, and the pathogen that cause the disease is called Dimoseptoria triticide, and it's me who, for the first time, who characterized this pathogen in Ethiopia, and we reported a lot of work on this pathogen. Of course, it's internationally reported, but in Ethiopia, it's just my team, my research team characterize the pathogen, and so far we screened and identified some resistance varieties, and also we identified some genes that are effective for just for developing an improved variety that is resistant to this disease, and the final will result in increased yield. So these are just the Septoria blotch, rust is the cerise rustus, and Fusarium head blight are major cause of wheat disease in Ethiopia and in East Africa as a whole.
Thank you, Dr. Tilahun. What about pests? If you can give me an example, maybe, of what role pests have in crop loss.
Pest is a general term, of course. Pests are it includes the pathogen, the root, root worms, and also there are also some endophytic just weeds, the weeds as well. For example, the striga is one of the weeds that just devastates sorghum. In just the major problem that affects sorghum production in Ethiopia and in East Africa as a whole is striga, and the same pest or the same weed causes yield loss on maize. Yeah, so there are many pests that affect crops, and on wheat that's the one I mentioned, and there is also a problem on sesame, for example. In sesame, bacterial blight is the major causes of sesame and yield loss in Ethiopia. I've seen in Sudan, in Kenya, in Uganda, Tanzania. It's a major problem. This bacterial blight is. So these are some of the pests that affect crop production in East Africa.
Dr. Tilaho tells us that understanding crop loss goes far beyond what scientists see in the field. Once a problem is identified, researchers need time, equipment, and steady funding to understand what's causing it. He says limited funding remains one of the biggest challenges.
Research by itself is just budget intensive. It's budget intensive, and biotechnological research is by far research intensive. So we don't stop on surveying on the field. After observing the problem, we would like to dissect the cause of the problem at the DNA or at the molecular level of the pest. And that is the facility you have, the budget, and the human resource. That is the critical problem affecting research in Africa as a whole.
Something I would say that's quite interesting there that you touched on, that the research is not just about collecting data on a specific aspect, but there are various aspects regarding crop loss that need to be researched and the data, collected on that. So it's not just a one-step process, I guess. It is a multiple or layered situation where data needs to be gathered about different aspects on crop loss.
Crop loss started from the field to the storage. Just crop loss is just start from planting, just take caring of the plant in the field, and just maintaining the plant health in the field, and harvesting, threshing, and storage. Means there is also a crop loss after post harvest. So if not good handled in storage as well, there could be a post harvest loss. So crop loss is several.
Beyond the lab, Dr. Tilaho also works directly with farmers in the field, so we asked him what farmers themselves are seeing and whether their knowledge can work alongside modern science to help reduce crop loss.
Oh, good question. Thank you so much. Yes, indigenous knowledge is so helpful. For example, lead planting, because in terms of disease, most of the disease, there is a mechanism called disease escaping term. That is, in such cases, lead planting is one of the techniques the farmers are using. And also intercropping is the method used by farmers. So indigenous knowledge is important in avoiding crop loss.
That's all from us at Africa Science Focus today. If you want to find out more, head to the SciDevNet website. That's www.scidev.net. Today's show was produced by Lolo Cynthia with editing by Ogechi Kianyao and Titilope Fadare and reporting by Michael Kaloki. My name is Ogechi Kianyao.